comes after the two talks.
Okay, good idea.
Okay, let's.
Here we go.
Let's find your slides first. Okay, let's kick off.
I'm here because I'm from Engage Liverpool, which is a resident-led organisation. We held in 2021 a seminar series on tourism and its impact on residents, and that was the theme of the seminar series. We invited Porto because we had discovered they were the best city, similar to Liverpool, in Europe for sustainability. We wanted to hear about sustainability in tourism, so they came and spoke at our event. And we were also very impressed by Copenhagen, because they have the best of all European cities relationship with its local resident population. They came up with a phrase which we'll discuss later on, but they were very, very impressive. And we formed a whole new idea of looking at tourism. We started a series of 3 conversations with residents of the city centre. We called it Day Tripper. Cities that work for residents work for tourists. That was what we learned from Copenhagen, and they put it into practice completely. And these were the 3 stories. The first one was called Stories from Our Travels, because we're all tourists somewhere at some point in our lives. So we wanted to learn why are we tourists, and what do we learn on our travels. It was a phenomenal discussion and really helpful. The second one was the tourists in our Liverpool home. People who come to Liverpool, what do they expect? Why do they come? And that was amazing, because we put the lessons from this one into the questions about here. What do they expect and what do they find? And then we revisited the seminar series, looking at how can we make the visitor experience the best possible it can be for Liverpool, for the city centre. It was a phenomenal experience, which we shared on our website. I wish I had a QR code, but I'm not as good as Patrick Hurley. As a result of that seminar series, we got invited to Tel Aviv to a big international tourism conference, where we spoke about what we do in Liverpool as residents trying to connect with the tourism industry. And we met this guy, Rondell Holder, phenomenal guy. He works for the DMO, the Destination Marketing Organization for New York, and he's the Senior Director of Multicultural Content. He has to work with the 5 boroughs of New York, and he spoke about regenerative tourism. And that is tourism that leaves an imprint for good on the place where it happens. How can you go to a place and make a difference? And he spoke about what he was doing in the 5 boroughs of New York, where he's discovered projects in each of those boroughs where he takes tourists to, and they learn about local culture, local history, local places that nobody would normally go to. Hugely successful. So what is it? Its main goal is for visitors to have a positive impact on the holiday destination, meaning they leave in a better condition than how they found it. It aims to actively revitalise and regenerate, resulting in a positive cycle of impacts on local communities. And that's the idea of regenerative tourism. Wirral Futures, question for us. Identify areas for regenerative tourism. Could be urban regeneration projects, eco projects, economic regeneration projects. I started looking at what kind of things we might discover in under those 3 headings, and here's 4 of them I quickly found. We heard this morning, or earlier on, Wirral Environmental Network, really significant. Wirral Waters, phenomenal. Make, of course, this whole thing is done through Make, and Birkenhead Town Centre. How could they be used for tourists to go and learn about them? We then got invited to Luxembourg, so that was just in May this year, where we learned something new in Luxembourg, talking about what Engage does with travel and tourists. And we learned about experiential tourism from Alushka Ritchie, President of the World Federation of Tourist Guide Associations. This is where people go to places to experience things, not just to see things. And I want to put regenerative tourism, experiential tourism together to look at what we can do. So that's the definition. We'll actively seek out and engage in things that make the place what it is. This includes eating local food, learning about the history of the place, speaking to the people who live there. Experiential tourism is often transformative. So, question for Wirral Futures. Where could we find these places in the Wirral? Gastronomic tourism, sport tourism, naturalistic tourism, and health and well-being tourism. In those areas. And with a very quick look, we came up with these instantly. Claremont Farm, an amazing place already on the Wirral. Royal Liverpool Golf Club, you can actually get involved and play golf there and learn lots of other stuff. The Wirral Way, health and well-being, phenomenal experience there. and of course just outside Wirral, but Nest Botanical Gardens. So Wirral Futures, this is all about a new way of thinking about tourism and tourists, regenerative and experiential. You have a great foundation already. I thought I was talking to people from the Wirral, but now we're all from Liverpool, so that was a waste. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are you from the Wirral?
I'm from
Oh,
Wirral.
and two.
Yeah, and three.
And yeah, down at the back.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Brilliant. Thanks very much to our speakers. And now, do we have any? What do you want to do? Would you like to sit off to one side?
Should we
Or
get a
if you-
chair?
Yeah,
Move a chair.
drag your chair out. There's one here, Gerry, if you want to use that one. Now, if we've got any questions for our speakers, I've got to say it's. I think it's the two. You stop playing.
We get on very well together.
Yeah. Really interesting. Patrick, obviously, I'm aware of your work, or what you laughingly call work. So that was really good. Gerry, that was really interesting just to hear the thoughts that has gone into Engage and what you're looking to do, and the way that you're kind of taking the models and trying to work them into different places. That was really good. I have no immediate questions to ask you. Does anybody else?
Gerry, did you do anything linked to the Eurovision that came to Liverpool? Obviously, had the opportunity to have lots of tourists coming
Funny
to the
you
city.
should mention that. She's not a plant.
This is a genuine question.
We did. One of the interesting things was because of what I talked about, what we believe. We contacted the council in January and asked them would they meet with residents, and it was really interesting how, we got well received eventually, but there was somebody who found it really difficult to come to a residents meeting. In the end, we had about 200 people turned up to hear from Marketing Liverpool, from the culture company, Culture Liverpool, from a Ukrainian person, from the Arena and Convention Centre who are hosting it, what we could expect as residents. But the big sad thing about it was 1 week before our residents meeting, where we'd specifically asked the council to come prepared to offer to residents the chance to become ambassadors so they could get involved in the event. They closed the date for that the week before our meeting. Why would you do that? I just couldn't believe it. I was gobsmacked. That's the kind of disconnect that I'm talking about here. When I go to other places, I say, why would you do that? Why would you, when residents are really keen, why would you not have that happen? So that the thinking isn't there. So despite all the work we do, and people are very good with Engage, they like who we are, what we do, they still haven't taken it on board. So, and we've now asked, can we have a follow-up meeting with residents to look at what impact did it have? What was our experience? What was your experience as a council? And they've said yes, but we might be too busy because we're very busy at the moment. So,
What area of Liverpool do you represent?
just waterfront and city centre.
Waterfront.
L3, L1, a bit of L2. Yeah.
So I was looking at the map that you brought up of the Wirral, and you were talking about the various different areas and the elements that you were looking for, the sport, the kind of health and what have you. I didn't notice music up there. So
No.
come on, there's Wirral has
Go on,
a
tell me. Educate
great
me.
musical heritage.
Half man, half biscuit.
A half man, half biscuit.
From
Thank
just
you.
down the road.
Fantastic.
So there's got to be that kind of musical.
Yes.
also.
How often can we go and hear them play?
Well, I don't know. I heard them play last year in Durham, but I did have to go all the way to Durham to hear them play.
That's the question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's so. What kind of impact do you think things like Future Yard? I mean, for me, having somewhere like Future Yard in Birkenhead has actually made a difference to me. I know that in the first year it opened, I was there. I think. Well, within the first year, I was there maybe about 2 or 3 times, and so coming from Liverpool to there. So those kind of, what do you think? Those distinct kind of individual cultural ventures.
I think we have
can
to think.
have-
We have to think in a completely new way.
You think at a more larger, more holistic scale?
I think no, at the moment when we think of tourism, we think about people going to, look at the buildings or attend an event in a particular place. And that's a consumerist approach to tourism, where you come and you're consuming. You're not connecting necessarily with the local population. Regenerative tourism and experiential tourism is quite the opposite. It's designing tourism so that you can actually make a difference while you're there. And to ask that question, how can I make a difference? And the experiential is, how can I experience the people, the food, the place in a new way? How can I actually meet the people? And one of the things we didn't show you was in the first seminar series on tourism. The first seminar was about Liverpool. It was called Destination Liverpool. And we chose to do it by asking 5 local people from different parts of the city region to talk about what would you do if you had a tourist for 48 hours. Where would you take them? It was phenomenal. We had Frank Cottrell Boyce from Crosby, who was wonderful, just beautifully describing what he would do. And every one of them was said, who would you take someone to meet? And that challenged some of them, because one guy did a very plush film and never spoke about a single person that you would meet. Because it's not part of there was this building, there was that scene, there was this event, there was this famous restaurant where you tend to, but nothing about meeting people.
Mm-hmm.
Have you got that online somewhere on YouTube? Where can we
Yes,
see that?
it's all online. Yeah.
How and where?
EngageLiverpool.com. Look under our banner headline seminars. Go to 2021 and Destination Liverpool, and on that page you'll find all the speeches and things. Yeah.
Have they implemented anything?
No, of course not. No. Why would you?
Yeah.
I'm not looking at you.
Not anymore.
Nothing to do with me.
I mean, I'd like to think that I'm being flippant, but I don't know.
Do you think even in the long term it is influential and they are paying attention, but it's going to be one of those kind of, it's going to creep into their consciousness where eventually they take it on board?
I think that's what Engage is trying to do all the time. In the previous discussion we looked at education at the end of Kenny's slide, was the importance of education. And I think what Engage tries to do is raise the debate, raise the concern. We bring the very best to Liverpool, but we've found in 10 years of work, the city is not interested in learning. Because Liverpool, and I think this is different to the Wirral, Liverpool has this image of, under Joe Anderson, of being, we're the best, world leading, world authority, we don't need to learn from anybody else, all the ideas are here. Crap.
Yeah.
And the Wirral luckily doesn't have that mentality.
Right, so you mentioned experiential tourism, right? So what would be the Wirral's experience it can offer tourists?
Well, we had 4 possibilities.
Yeah.
Getting involved in sport, actually.
Well, you can do that anywhere. What's
Well,
specific about the Wirral that you can do
Well,
here
you
that
can't
would bring
always-
people here rather than
Yeah,
go to...
it's not my favourite choice at all, but under sport, you can't play anywhere you like in a golf course that hosts the Open. I mean, that makes the Liverpool one special. You can go to lots of golf courses in Sefton, only one ever hosts the Open. So that's unique.
You still have to have money to
And you
play,
have to have money,
really.
exactly. It's not my favourite, but it is a sport that the Wirral has got that it can offer. You could look at Prenton Park, I'm sure, and attend a football match, and who for tourists coming to the Wirral, does Tranmere Rovers ever get marketed as a tourist destination?
Does, doesn't it? Yeah.
I bet, yeah, not massively.
It
No,
does.
we don't
And they're
think about
opening-
it. We don't think about it.
They're opening a new fan park, aren't they?
It's supposed to be, yeah.
Well, there's
Great,
supposed to be
well,
a fan park
yeah.
being built at
Well, this would
Tranmere.
encourage them to do that kind of thing,
Yeah.
so that when people come, they have a good experience at the game. So and there are lots of other areas. There's eco tourism. There's gastronomic tourism. So it's looking at. I mean, Claremont Farm. There are probably others, but I don't know them because I'm not from the Wirral.
Ah.
But Claremont, I'm sure there would be places where you can actually go and pick veg, or they might even be able to be encouraged we'll run sessions on how to grow food, how you can care for food, how you can take something here and take it home to plant.
So are you doing Engage Wirral now?
No.
No.
That's something you should.
Somebody
You
else.
could start it though.
Somebody else.
Yeah.
No,
I'm
thank you.
retired.
Not me. Do you want to?
Okay, exactly.
Agnes, isn't it?
Yeah,
You could do
I'll
it.
think about it.
You could
I
do
look at that Engage thing that I asked you about.
it. And see. We'll support.
So I'm interested, Neil. You mentioned about Future Yard.
Yeah.
So I think on its own, Future Yard is fantastic, but it needs an industrial ecosystem around it. If you think back, I hate to bring Liverpool back into the conversation, but I will do. If you think back to the early 60s and the explosion of Mersey Beat and all of that, it wasn't just because there was a venue to play at. There were also rehearsal rooms around. There were hundreds of these venues to play at. There was also, retail outlets, shops,
Just
to
NEMs, yeah,
NEMs, and
yeah.
all of this stuff.
Selling the music.
And this is the thing that I think that people can gloss over or forget. So there's so many of these venues with death trap out buildings, warehouses in the centre of town that had half survived the war, that had been repurposed, put a stage in the corner and get some lads to play on it and it'll be all right. And the office workers would go down in their lunch hour and they could watch a band in their lunch hour, go back to the typing or whatever they were doing, their insurance clerking. And that was the system that then, within 2 or 3 years, gets a national, international platform and causes this cultural revolution. It wasn't just because there was one venue that was there and just hoped and magicked up this whole kind of scene. So maybe what Future Yard could lead to, and maybe what Birkenhead's experiential tourism could lead to, is somebody comes up and says, we're going to recreate that from this kind of messy, not really kind of public sector led, but somebody just comes up and says, we'll do this from the grassroots ourselves. You'll get the dead hand of the council coming in and saying, oh, okay, well, we'll have a ethnic minority led, LGBT led,
Health and safety.
health and safety approved cultural offer that repurposes old buildings for abstract cutting edge art, and there'll be an opportunity of overseas travel for disaffected and deprived youths. And Brian Epstein just did that himself anyway. He took the lads off to London. They'd already all been to Hamburg, this generation of working class lads in 1960. It didn't need Liverpool Council coming in and funding it. To replicate that, it doesn't need Wirral Council coming in and funding it. What it might need is someone from Future Yard just going, tell you what, I'll just do it myself.
Yeah.
Can I come? I think Paddy's talks a lot of sense there. To go back to the question he asked me originally, I think if we look at two of the slides we had up was Wirral Waters and Birkenhead Town Centre, both regeneration projects. Now, they're not my favourite concept of regeneration, but they are what you immediately think of when you think of regeneration. You think of there is no way though either of those is in any way connected to tourism. So is there no way we can have conversations with the company behind Birkenhead Town Centre and Peel Holdings, not my favourite company, but they're doing the work they're doing, to say to them, is there any way in which you can offer people who might come to the Wirral who are looking to understand how you're doing regeneration, how can you meet them? How can you show them round? How can they actually get involved in some of this work? Is there any way in which the community is involved? I suspect with Wirral Waters there's not, but I suspect with Birkenhead Town Centre there has been, and there ought to be an ongoing connection with a community that is being regenerated. So trying to find a way in which we can say to people, we can market this process as being an attractive model for people to come here, like you go over to, Neil, you were saying you go over to the Wirral for exactly the same, for Future Yards and see what they're doing. How can we begin to look at that and then look at other kinds of regeneration that are not led by big money and councils or big companies, but are actually local led regeneration projects. They're actually much more interesting.
Mhm.
And maybe we heard that from Kenny. Maybe what Kenny
Yeah,
was
yeah,
trying to
yeah.
do was a local regeneration project around food.
Mhm.
You know, so how do we identify? And I wanted to say Liverpool has got the Liverpool Food Growers Network, which is at very beginnings of that kind of connecting people together, and the Wirral Environmental Network that we also referenced could be doing a similar thing. How can they take what they do and make it into a tourism offer?
Yeah.
And tourists are not just from outside. Tourists are also from the Wirral
Yeah, yeah.
and from Liverpool.
We already have Wirral farmers markets all over Wirral.
Mm.
Have
It's-
you heard of them?
No, I mean I don't, but I'm sure. Yeah.
They're
I mean,
already-
Wirral's got a very good gastronomic reputation. Some really good places for growing food. But it's about marketing it as our offer and not being ashamed of it. I bet there are people in the council who think they have to try and find the biggest building or the biggest event that we're putting on to help to market the Wirral. But actually, this regenerative and experiential tourism is, I think it's cutting edge, it's new, it's where tourism needs to go, and there are places all over the world who are now majoring in that concept.
It is like the concept of people giving up 3 months during the summer where they would travel to Africa to volunteer for a particular group.
Yeah, exactly.
And yet they're coming away
Yeah.
from that, you know, having achieved something.
Yeah.
And it's very similar.
It is, yeah.
It's very similar to
Yeah.
that. Just to
You
relate
could say,
to.
come to the Wirral for 3 days, walk the Wirral way,
Yeah.
eat in this particular restaurant,
Dig a
see where the
field.
food comes, and spend a day with this organisation, painting a school or
Yeah, yeah.
or digging an allotment or whatever it might be. Get involved in making it better because you've been there.
Yeah. No, it's really good. So was that one of the 50 great ideas for in the 50 great
It's gonna
ideas?
be in the next book, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the 51st.
50, yeah.
This is the great thing about the book, is that I just stole everybody's ideas and put them in the book. It does actually say compiled by rather than written by, because
Yeah.
they were, like I say,
Very honest.
were,
Yeah.
they were from workshops, and this
Yeah.
is what other people suggested.
Yeah.
And so yeah, Gerry, we'll take that.
And
Do you want to
don't-
credit?
You don't need to credit me now.
No.
Sorry.
I wasn't going to.
I know, I've seen the book.
I think that Patrick, you mentioned earlier. You mentioned, you know, the dead hand of the council, and it's like, you know, it is that kind of, you know, coming into something and almost kill it instantly. You know what this does, and what we do like quarterly in Leaf is we listen to other people's ideas, and we get a kick out listening to other people's ideas and their passions. And what you've done is actually kind of gather those ideas from people and put them together and compile them, as you said. So I really like it, obviously. But where was I going with this question? Nowhere at all.
I think,
How much does the book cost? I think was the
Was
last
that the question?
yeah,
yeah.
a book costs £6.
£6. All right. Okay.
£6.
Can I buy it online?
You can buy it at Etsy.com.
Etsy.
Type in 50 ideas for the North.
Okay, brilliant. But the dead hand of the council element was what I was
So
referring to.
that's an interesting thing, because I was reading something online yesterday, and this fella online was talking about how the UK has become a consultation nation, and all you ever see is like endless consultations on stuff, and endless. Oh well, we'll go back to and somebody doesn't like this, and he said the outcome is that nothing ever bleeding happens. Nothing gets built, nothing gets repaired.
The
Nothing.
consultants make loads of money.
Consultants make loads of money, and after however many years of government that doesn't really work for areas like this, we're seeing that really across the country nothing really works like it should. And I think one of the reasons is there's too much of this. Oh well, we'll go out to a consultation. We'll put it in the documents. There'll be 68 pages in there, and on the 47th page, halfway down the paragraph, we need to go. Oh, and there's another 6 weeks where you just bloody build the thing, for God's sake.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the book and the concept and my passion is, that people just need to get on with stuff. And you're not going to get a local authority with a risk-averse culture doing this.
The problem
What you're going to need is people just themselves, without seeking permissions, just crack on with things.
The problem is that sometimes when you have a council that is, it's not just that the dead hand, or, you know, however you describe it, sometimes they actively, because they're not doing things, they're actively preventing growth,
Yeah.
they're actively
The
preventing
squatting
things.
on the
You know, I'm working with someone at the moment who's trying to get a food truck on a pitch on the Wirral. And the department are saying, well, tell us where you want to go. And she'll go, well, I'd like to go here. And they go, oh, no, you can't go there.
Yeah.
And my response was, why don't you have a map of the Wirral that says you can pitch here, here, and here, pick one. And it's a 5-minute conversation. It's been going on for 6 months. And you know, here's lots of people out there wanting to do things, wanting to grow the economy, wanting to, you know, get involved in things, and they're being held back.
And they're being held back, actually, I think, with the best of intentions by the local authorities and by bureaucracies, because I mentioned earlier about how Brian Epstein created the Merseybeat concept or scene or whatever. If the council had gone out to procure a cultural activity led by a young gay Jewish man, he would never have applied for it. But he just did it anyway, and the reason is because, like, you know, people have to be skilled in filling in the forms, and then they have to go and then you need to know what words will achieve your desired outcomes. And I think really the skills that we need are in everybody, but they are not the skills of filling in forms and pulling your hair out at 2 o'clock in the morning because you're only 67 pages into a 74-page document that you need to reconfigure your business plans and your medium-term financial projections and all that nonsense.
And the irony is people can be flexible, people can move. We saw it during COVID.
Yeah.
Lots of red tape dropped, lots of things happening, people getting the help that they needed, and now we seem to have gone straight back to...
And overnight, none of that red tape mattered. You know, the world was better for not having all the bureaucracy there, because people could just get on with things.
And did we learn anything from that?
We learned that we miss
I'm
it now.
usually the optimist in the room.
I think one of the things we learned, going back to, if anybody was at the Engage events, like over when we were talking about Porto, Copenhagen, they were examples of councils, and not necessarily the council. In some ways, the council was involved. Also, the sort of arm's length things like the destination management organisations and stuff like. They kind of learnt this skill of standing back a bit, as you're talking about, Patrick, of like letting people get on with stuff and working out the absolute minimum that the council needs to do to support this. They don't need to be front and centre. They don't need to be taking credit for this. They don't need to be doing consultations about it and having application forms and all that kind of stuff. They're sort of letting the businesses, there was a great example of like a bookstore that invites people, tourists, to come and like work in the bookstore for a week, and you get free accommodation, but you have to work and you meet all the local people. Whenever any of my friends come and visit Liverpool, all they talk about is how friendly everybody in the city has been. I imagine it's exactly the same in the Wirral. And like, so the advantage of like letting a little community organisation like that just work out a model and then support it however the council can, convening, trying to publicise it, trying to hook it up with other things that are happening in the area. I think that's one of the things maybe we saw some of during the sort of pandemic era of the council kind of stepping back a little bit, dropping some of those sort of red tapey bureaucracy things and just like saying, well, tell us what we can do. Like, this is totally unprecedented. What can we do to sort this out? And you are right, it feels like maybe some of that has been forgotten. But I think there are cities that do a much better job of that we could learn from.
Yeah, one case in point is Aarhus in Denmark, which was European Capital of Culture, I think 2 years ago. I met in Tel Aviv the person who runs the legacy project of European Capital of Culture, and we could ask what is the legacy of it in Liverpool after Europe 2008. But their legacy was ambassadors. They have 24,000 people from the city signed up, part of an ambassadorial scheme. Liverpool had ambassadors for Eurovision, 500. In fact, they needed 4 times that number, not just the 500. But they did a great job. and they were all in yellow. You could spot them easily everywhere, but there weren't enough of them. But now, because it was a Culture Liverpool project, that money they had for that element of the project is gone. So there's no further ambassadors. There's nobody running the scheme. There's nothing. There's no ongoing, because they see it from Culture Liverpool perspective as for events. Whereas in fact in Aarhus, it's every single event in the city has got volunteers at it. So it would mean in Liverpool, every time the Philharmonic or the O2 or the Arena have got events going on, there are ambassadors there, all dressed up, meeting people, saying, can I help you with anything? Do you know where you're going after this? How's public transport? Can I help you get home? All that, what you're doing tomorrow, are you staying overnight? Any ideas of what you want to do? Just chatting and meeting people. Now, if we had that vision,
People in Liverpool do that anyway.
they do, but it's good to have it organised, because although we do it anyway, and you're not going to take that away, what an impact it has when you can identify those people because they're all dressed in yellow or purple, like the bins or whatever, and they're there to help you. That sends a signal. It's a corporate signal, and it's impressive.
And of course, because they're all skilled up, they all have their directories, they have all have a look at this. This is what's going on tomorrow. If you're here next week, this is taking place. Exactly. So they've got all that knowledge built in. I thought I'd jump in there because I'd like to say, can we have a round of applause for Patrick and Gerry? Thank you both very much. I want to get the door open. It is, and we've been told not to.